and welcome to the Esty Show. Today, our guest is Arianna Hoffman, a product manager and a bodybuilder, and we'll be discussing the intersection of weightlifting, overall health, and product management. Arianna is a fascinating individual. She was one of the standout product managers on my team in the past, and in addition to her work with multiple fitness startups, she is a certified coach for Division I athletes in soccer, gymnastics, and field hockey. Arianna earned her master's in exercise science from University College Dublin in Ireland and has helped hundreds of clients ranging from postpartum moms to children learning healthier habits. One story I want to share from when Arianna first joined my team, and you'll hear echoes of this as Arianna comments on different scenarios that I'll present throughout the podcast. She worked on a pricing project, determining how much to discount an initial month of a subscription. Now, there were very heated debates with different stakeholders about whether it should be a flat amount, like $45, a flat discount, like $50 off, or a percentage off, for example, 66% off your first month. Questions arose around whether we should discount more or drop another $5 to see if conversion would increase. After one of those meetings, Arianna had a regroup with me, and she goes, "If you don't know what you're paying for, then even $1 a month is too much." Her point was clear. While price is important, ensuring that customers understand the value is where our efforts should be focused. This insight has stuck with me to this day. On a personal note, a couple of years ago, after I gave birth to my eldest, I blew up. It literally looked like someone stuck a straw into me and just kept on blowing. A month after giving birth, the swelling had subsided and people told me I looked great, I guess in comparison to what I had looked like before. So I assumed that I was back to my pre-pregnancy weight. At the 6-week checkup, I stepped on the scale and nearly passed out. I was 15 pounds heavier than I thought I was. As soon as I got home, I typed in trainer near me, and I realized there was a trainer in my building. What I didn't realize is that it was a weightlifting coach. So I connected with Lauren, a bodybuilder, and trained with her for the next 2 years. This experience opened a window for me into a whole new world. These people who do bodybuilding do it full time. Weightlifters had such a different approach to nutrition, eating many small meals throughout the day, a ton of vitamins, a ton of shakes, every single calorie and macro meticulously measured. Their workouts included morning cardio and afternoon weightlifting with designated rest days, muscle splits, and recovery times. I learned about cutting, which is dieting in the weightlifting world, and bulking for muscle building, and even the specialized fashion brands that cater to weightlifters, including silicone wedding bands that wouldn't get damaged during a deadlift. Completely fascinating stuff. So imagine how exciting it was to discuss this with Arianna live for you. This episode will be relevant to anyone who's interested in health, workouts, and the startup world that's also disrupting fitness. And I'll give you a little sneak peek. In my tech fitness journey, I went after a crush company that I have in this space to get an interview, and they got back to me, and we'll be doing an interview soon. So I'm so excited to present that to you as well. Without further ado, let's get started. Arianna, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me. I've been a long-time listener, so I'm glad to be on.
I am a big fan of yours. How did you first get into weightlifting as a product manager?
Actually, in my case, weightlifting came first. The funny thing was, a lot of people ask me, "Oh, did you play sports in high school?" I actually played 0 sports. In fact, I was a musician. I hated running. I hated any type of physical activity. So I think a lot of my gym teachers would kind of laugh to see where I am now. But I ended up, when I was a freshman in college, I was actually diagnosed with Lyme disease. And because of that, I had really achy joints. My energy levels were trash. I was actually sleeping some days until 1, 2 in the afternoon. I just felt awful. And I had always been a skinnier kid. But of course, I'm at college now. I'm starting to notice my body change a little bit, the typical freshman 15. And I had this moment of reckoning where I was like, I need to do something about this. I feel awful. I have no energy. So I actually ended up taking a fitness class for college credit. And I was like, well, I'm going to have to go to this class because it's pass fail. So either I attend and I pass, or I drop out and then I fail the class. So that was 2 times a week. And my hope was that would incentivize me to start going more often. And sure enough, it did. I noticed I had so much more energy. I had more mobility. I feel like my joints were starting to feel a lot healthier. And then I started actually going on my own outside of that, going 3, 4, 5 times a week. And I just became addicted to it. And fast forward to post-college, I started doing CrossFit and then Olympic weightlifting competitions. So for those that don't know, weightlifting is basically the snatch and the clean and jerk. So a snatch is barbell to overhead in one fell swoop. And
it's
then
like where you squat holding it and then you lift it up.
Exactly. It's like, it looks like magic, honestly. And then the clean and jerk is from ground to shoulders and then shoulders to overhead. So I competed in that for like 3 years, but now for me, my career is at the forefront, but fitness is still a huge part of my life. And that ended up leading to me wanting to help other people live a healthier life. So I actually worked as a personal trainer for almost 8 years before I got into the health tech side of things.
And I remember when you were interviewing for a position, your profile picture on LinkedIn was very different from most product managers applying for the position. Instead of having the smiling face, you had a picture of yourself sweating at a side angle and the barbell with huge plates.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, we're not going to mess with this one.
No.
What are some of the biggest misconceptions around weightlifting? Like, I know before I got into it, and it was a very random story, but my fear was like, oh, I don't want to look super muscular. And like now 3 years later, it's like, that should be the least of your worries.
Yeah. I'm like, if only getting bulky were that easy. Like, I work really freaking hard and, I still don't think, like, I would say I look muscular, but I don't think anyone would look at me, at least not to my knowledge, and be like, oh my God, she's like bulging out of control. So yeah, I would say that's definitely a huge misconception. But also, I think for a lot of women in particular, they tend to default more so to cardio because I think in the long run, that's just sort of something that's been ingrained in our minds of, oh, you want to lose weight, get on the elliptical, get on the Stairmaster for 30 minutes, sweat it out, get your heart rate up. That's the best way to lose weight. And that is certainly,
I feel like, or yoga, and like the closest they'll get is Pilates.
Yes. The Pilates, don't get me wrong, it's tough. It's a great workout, but there's so many ways to improve your health and fitness. And I do feel like many women tend to default to group classes in general, which I understand because the community aspect of fitness, I think, is really rewarding and exciting. But I think it's important for all of us to just strive to be well-rounded because life changes. We all need to adapt to different stimuli and different things in our lives. So I personally don't like to be a one-trick pony, and I try to encourage other people, try as many different things as you can. Don't just stick to one sport or one hobby or one type of group fitness. Like, be well-rounded. I think that ultimately is what sets you up for health in the long term.
You're saying do a mix of everything, but you should definitely incorporate weightlifting. And also, you got a master's in sport. Yes. Can you talk a little bit about the science and building up muscle mass and why you can't get that from the elliptical?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So the biggest thing, in order to adapt to a stressor, and in this case, the stressor is just daily life, trying to improve your overall health and wellness, you need to continue to change the stimulus. So if someone is going on the Stairmaster or the elliptical, or even going for a run, let's say at the same exact pace every single day for the same exact amount of time, you are not going to adapt. The first month, maybe you will adapt because that is a new stimulus for you. But afterwards, you're kind of just going to plateau because you need to constantly change multiple variables. So that could be either the intensity, how hard you're pushing yourself. Are you getting to like a higher percentage of your max heart rate? So maybe at one point, a 30-minute run was like really hard for you, and then it becomes gradually easier. So now you need to run faster or increase the duration. Maybe you've been running for 30 minutes for a while. You want to pick it up to 45, an hour, 2 hours. And then in the case of weights, your body is used to just moving your own body weight around all of the time. So bone density is super critical for all women, especially after menopause and even in that perimenopausal stage. So for most women, that tends to start in their 40s. But what you find is actually the habits that you develop in your 20s, 30s really sets you up for a successful older age. So 50s, 60s, 70s, beyond. And women, I believe, post-menopause lose something like 1% of their muscle mass per year, which is really significant. That puts them for greater risk of falls, bone breaks, other types of catastrophic injuries that maybe someone who's in their 20s and 30s can rebound from. But when you're 75, it's a lot harder to rebound from that. So creating muscle mass younger in age will make your bones stronger, your tendons stronger, your ligaments stronger. And then ultimately, if you do fall, it's not going to be the same kind of catastrophic event that it might have been otherwise. Osteoporosis is very common in all people above the age of 60, but especially women. So women definitely need to prioritize more strength training.
And you're saying that drinking milk won't cut it.
Drinking milk is great, don't get me wrong, but definitely need to lift weights as well.
Someone listening to you here, let's say we have people, I feel like product managers are generally, I don't want to generalize, but are fit people, just type A's, care very much about things being a certain way, being in control. And I think that comes with all sorts of food restrictions, the ability to diet. And I think a lot of product managers work out, but the female ones, I think weightlifting is still not the norm. So if someone's listening to this, it's like, okay, how do I start? Mm-hmm. The two women in the gym who are constantly lifting look way too intimidating. Do I have to take a trainer? Like there aren't classes for this. I'd be interested in hearing your experience on why not. How could someone get started and get into it in a safe way?
So I'm biased because I worked as a trainer for a long time. And on one hand, I recognize that personal training is cost prohibitive for some people. It is a luxury at the end of the day. Many trainers charge $60, $100, $150 an hour, depending on where in the country you are, what gym you go to. But I do recommend that everyone at least does 1 or 2 sessions with a trainer. I think investing $100 to $200 in your health just to make sure you have someone who can watch you with a trained eye, who is going to be able to break movements down into a way that is easy for you to understand, things that you're probably not even aware of with your own body, who can make sure that you're lifting safely, because I can guarantee you injuries are not only expensive, but they really take you out of the game for quite a while. So it's worth it, in my opinion, to spend that money up front.
Well, you weren't even in the game to begin with.
Yeah. And you'd be surprised. I've noticed most people who say they get injuries, you'd think it's from a deadlift. Usually it's like, oh, I got out of my car the wrong way. I slept the wrong way. And part of that is just compounded bad movement patterns over many, many years. So if you work with a trainer, even like I said, just 1 or 2 sessions will be helpful to just get an understanding of, okay, what are my movement patterns like? Is my posture bad? Do I need to work on that? Men tend to be really tight. They have very little mobility. So if you ask some men to lift their arm over their head, you'll see some guys can only get to about here. They're super strong, but also super locked up and inflexible. And women in general, and obviously there's a spectrum here, women tend to have the opposite problem where they have so much mobility, but they have no postural control. So think about gymnasts or dancers who have basically no end range of motion. They can just bend in every which way, which is amazing for their sport. But sometimes because of that, they don't have control at that end range. So a trainer will work with you to identify, are you more the tight, stiff person, or are you the person who has so much mobility and needs a little bit of strength and stability to keep it tight and to avoid injury?
Okay, so let's say you did the 1-2 trainer things with the trainer. We're both in product management. You worked for a company called Future Fit. What technologies are available? What do you think is the current state of fitness technology, weightlifting technology? Are there any technologies out there that you're like, this is great, you should try it? Or do you think the future is still undefined?
So as you can imagine, I've tried it all. I've tried the apps, I've tried the hardware, the software, I've tried the wearables. I've seen many products that are available on the market today. I'm not going to say all of them, but I've been to different conferences and whatnot where you have all these big tech companies, old school fitness brands that are present, that kind of testing different products. I will say, in my opinion, most of the stuff that I've seen today is extremely overpriced and not as valuable as I would like it to be for the price. That's not to say that it doesn't work for everyone. Take, for example, many of the wearable devices. So as a strength athlete, I found that a lot of these wearable devices have a bias towards aerobic activities. So it's really good at saying, okay, you ran this amount of distance, your heart rate got up to this, you're probably going to be pretty tired tomorrow. But I found sometimes the quantification with things like doing back squats or weighted movements don't translate well, where one morning I'll wake up and I feel like garbage and the device tells me like, oh, you're ready to go heavy today. And I'm like, wait, but I feel awful. What do you mean? And then the reverse, where some days I'll feel amazing and then my recovery score is super low and I feel like I actually perform really well. So I personally, this is just my N of one experience, haven't found many wearables to be very valuable beyond a few moments where I'm like, oh, that was interesting. And then after that, like the novelty sort of wears off.
And in terms of wearables, there's obviously the watch, there's the Oura Ring. Are there any other wearables that are out there that are popular?
So there's the Whoop, of course, which that was the one that I primarily used. That one I preferred to the Apple Watch because the Apple Watch
is the Whoop a watch?
It is, yeah. It doesn't have like a face, a watch face similar to an Apple Watch, but the battery lasts a lot longer, which I appreciated because I don't need to think about charging more devices. I think we're all pretty tired of that. And from what I understand, the Oura Ring has a really good battery life as well. And then Polar has like a chest strap, which is typically the most accurate because it's very close to your heart. So usually you see a lot of endurance athletes who will wear those types of devices, or collegiate athletes. But outside of the wearable space, you've probably seen tons and tons of hardware companies popping up, connected rowers, connected bikes, connected strength training machines like the Tonal.
The Tonal.
I've tried them all and had friends who worked at various different companies. And I'm sure you probably noticed in 2020 and 2021, these companies blew up. I mean, it was just like a money pit, a pile of money where all these investors were throwing cash at it. The valuations were insane. Stock prices were insane.
Everyone was at home, couldn't go to the gym.
Like windfall. I think Peloton filed for bankruptcy recently, and like a lot of these other companies either got acquired or just have done layoffs, lost a ton of valuation.
Everyone's still paying off their Peloton bikes and the company went.
Did you see, I think SoulCycle was basically offering to like buy used Peloton bikes to get people into their studios. Basically like, we'll take that thing off your hands, come to the studio and we'll tell you how to cycle. Which I'm like, that's actually kind of genius. So
I wonder if it's genius if you look at the financials.
Yeah, probably not. So I think the hard thing with some of the hardware devices, in my opinion, is they are cost prohibitive for most people. They are really expensive because not only are you paying for the actual device, but there's always a subscription cost, right? $40, $50 a month. So now you're paying $2,000 to buy a piece of equipment. And then on top of that, you have to pay an extra $500 a year on a subscription just to access content. Like, that's a lot of money when you could probably pay 25 to $50 a month for a gym and just get all of that. And I think what I've noticed is the community aspect is really what people were looking for. There was this moment where in the pandemic, everyone was saying, are big box gyms ever going to make a comeback? Are boutique gyms ever going to make a comeback? Like, is this just the new norm? And actually what we saw was boutique gyms and big box gyms, their memberships like skyrocketed after the pandemic because people so desperately wanted to be around other people. They liked the community that came along with a gym. So it's not to say that these products aren't valuable. I think they have their place for people maybe who have kids at home who for them, it's not an option to leave their houses and go to the gym. But I think in general, the community aspect of fitness and being in a physical location that's not the place you just potentially worked 8 hours is a good thing. So I haven't found really any of the tech products that I absolutely love. I think a lot of them are all show and no go, if I'm being honest.
So Ariana says, do it the good old way. Go to the gym, find yourself a human trainer, not artificial intelligence, but legit intelligence.
Yes.
And make sure you do it properly. Talking about this whole being healthy, getting into shape, building up bone density, I feel like we can't not touch upon the news du jour of RFK Jr. dropping out of the race and sort of forcing everyone to talk about the processed food, I don't know if you want to call it pandemic, but him basically saying the government's about to approve Ozempic for children the age of 6 at $1,000 a month for the rest of your life. He's like, why don't you pay for 3 organic meals of fresh whole fruits and vegetables and you'll get better results? Very curious to get your take on this and like, what is the state of nutrition, I'm going to say, in this country?
Mm-hmm. So I think it's a very complex topic. On one hand, I understand that as human beings, we all have accountability for our own decisions and our own choices in life. At the end of the day, people have different starting points, but we all get to make our own choices. Now, the other side of that coin is corporations are spending hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars every single year to put crap in our faces. To say, here's this new flavor of chip, here's this new type of candy. Oh, hey, look, it's Halloween. Go buy your kids as much candy as you possibly can and make sure they fill up their little pillowcase. Christmas, make cookies for Santa, like Christmas cookies. There's all of this marketing that goes into eating junk food and making things seem healthy when maybe they're not.
Is that greenwashing?
Yeah, I think that would technically be the term, is like greenwashing and also the fake aspect of marketing where you saw cereal companies, 20, 30 years ago that were saying part of a balanced breakfast, you got to have your Honey Nut Cheerios or you got to have your Frosted Flakes. Well, most of those foods have like 60 grams of sugar. So you're telling a kid that first thing they wake up in the morning, they should eat 60 grams of sugar and then just go right to school. 0 grams of fiber, 0 grams of protein. Just straight shot of like glucose spike right in the morning.
There's this TikToker. He makes videos. He's a graphic designer, but making labels for really unhealthy food as if they're healthy foods. And it's the most hysterical thing. He'll take Gushers and he'll be like, natural flavors, like no animal foods, completely vegan.
Gluten-free.
There you go. Fat-free. I don't even think it has oil, but yeah. Oh my God.
And so I think while on one hand, again, we are all responsible for our own choices at the end of the day, we have to seriously reflect on our choices like I did when I was in college. And I said, hey, I should probably not be eating an entire pizza every single night. That's slightly hyperbole, but we have to take into account, okay, am I making choices that are going to be net good for my body or net bad for my body? But then acknowledging that there are these systems in place that are intentionally trying to force garbage on our plates and brainwash us, quite frankly, to think that they are healthy, that this is the way that you are supposed to fuel your body. And then we're pointing and saying, oh, haha, look at you eating Frosted Flakes when companies just spent millions of dollars to tell you that Frosted Flakes were healthy. And now consumers are like, wait, I thought that was healthy. I thought I was doing the right thing by giving my kid a balanced breakfast before school. So I think we also have to put equal parts blame on the government to like put legislation in place around teaching nutrition in schools so families have the tools to be able to give their kids the right information, and also corporations to stop putting garbage in our foods. You look at Europe, there are so many laws around things that can and can't be in food that we don't have here.
Right. Like 70 ingredients that are illegal in Europe are perfectly legal here. Question for you. There was this class in business school. I think I spoke about it. ethics. I hated it. It grated on my nerves. And I feel like I remember every single class. It had a real impact on me. But one of the cases we did, and I really still don't know how I feel about it, was one of the big potato chip companies. They did an analysis. It's very well known. The company is very well known. They did an analysis that they had already penetrated, 82% of US households. And they were like, okay, we can't expand beyond this. Everyone who's going to eat our chips is already eating our chips. So the only option we have is to get the people who are eating our chips to eat more. And then they put a team of scientists in a lab to develop an addictive chip. How do you get people to consume more and to not get to that satiation point so that they keep on eating more and buying more? And the question was, ethical or not?
Right. There's this concept of empty calories. And so by that, I mean, typically in food, fiber is so important, not only for digestion, but it also helps with satiety. So if you were to eat, for example, 200 grams of lettuce versus 200 grams of cornflakes, you're not going to feel the same amount of fullness from those two things, even though it's in theory like 200 grams, right? Because the lettuce has so much fiber. And so it's way slower for your body to digest it versus the cornflakes. Like it's going to spike your blood sugar. You're going to digest it so much faster. So fiber is super important. And a lot of these junk foods you'll find have virtually none of it, as well as the micronutrients. So think vitamins and minerals, vitamin A, vitamin C. You want like iron, magnesium, those types of things in the food that you eat. And historically, junk food is completely devoid of almost all of it. Sometimes they add it back in, which is like called fortification. So you'll see Cheerios like, oh, it has vitamins and minerals because they added it back in. It wasn't there originally. So they're like, cool, let's put some thiamine in your food and like some vitamin C back into the food that we took out in the first place. So this concept of empty calories, it's going to make you more hungry in the long term. It's addictive. It really has this like reward system in your brain that it completely kicks off. Protein is another one. Your body digests protein a lot slower than it digests carbohydrates. So foods that are low in protein, like potato chips, your body's going to digest that so quickly. And so we do need to put the onus back onto the systems in place to make foods that are actually nutritious that we eat and we feel full. And food deserts, that's the concept of just certain cities. It's really hard to get actual nutritious food. It's basically bodegas, gas stations. You can go, you can get chips, you can get cereal, gum. That's about it.
So let me try to flesh out both sides of the arguments and tell me where on the spectrum we stand. Yeah. So like the ultimate capitalist libertarian thing is like, you don't want government involved in your food. It's your choice what you eat and what you don't eat. Customers demand dictates supply. So if you stop buying junk food and you start buying healthy food, then the suppliers are going to figure out how to deliver healthy food. That's the side of the spectrum. The other side of the spectrum is, why are you feeding crap? Don't sell crap. If you sell good food, people will buy good food because that's the only thing that's available. I'll also add a different portion to that side of the argument, which is the government's already in your food by subsidizing all of those companies, farms to grow corn syrup, etc. So if the government's already in your plate, then better have the government help you out rather than force feed sugar down your throat and then give you Ozempic to try to lose it and then give you another drug for the side effects that Ozempic will have. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah, it is a very tricky line because I would agree I don't think the perfect solution is the government tells us exactly what to eat, when to move, what to do. I think at least if there were, and I'm going to be the first one to tell you I'm not a politician, I'm not an expert on legislature and stuff like this, but I think at least if we could prioritize education in schools that emphasize why movement is important, why nutrition is important, then we can at least give people the tools that they need to kind of form their own opinions and decide what they want to do with that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
We're low on time, but let's play a practical exercise. Ariana for president. Woohoo! You became president of the United States.
So you said that you're prioritizing education in school. So let's take schools. You have a whole public school system. You're providing food in public school systems. What are you doing with that food? What are you giving them?
Lots of fruits and vegetables, first and foremost. Ideally, foods that are higher in fiber. So typically, for example, whole grains tend to have more fiber than white bread or something like that. Ideally, no sodas, and probably things more along the lines of like oatmeal rather than cookies and pizza. So
You're elected.
thank you.
You know how they have those videos comparing school lunches in different countries?
I was the kid too who would have a chocolate chip cookie and chocolate milk at lunch. Like looking back, I'm just like, oh God.
I grew up in Russia and we would love to hate on our food. I feel like all kids do. But thinking back, oh my God. So they had fresh baked white and black bread, and the black bread was pumpernickel whole grain black bread. Then they had a fresh vegetable, fish or meat soup. Then they had a fresh salad, like cabbage, like a Russian version of kimchi with like a fish patty or a meat patty or a piece of fish, and rice or mashed potatoes. It was so wholesome.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I mean, also looking back, I feel like obesity rates were very low. Like, yes, there were cases, but the majority were just, I don't know, it just wasn't an issue.
Right.
And people moved around. I mean, granted, I was in a city, but just to get from your home to where you were going, you had to get to the subway, go down the stairs, up the stairs, cross the street, do the 4 blocks there, the 4 blocks back. I feel like just the lifestyle is different. We didn't have the ability to buy a powder, add in water and make mashed potatoes. And, you know, it's so convenient here.
Right. Instant mashed potatoes is like fundamentally different than making fresh mashed potatoes. Like those two things are not the same food, basically.
Let's do a lightning round.
Okay.
So if someone comes over to you and says, Ariana, I need to lose weight, but I don't have any self-control. Should I do Ozempic or should I try dieting? I've tried it a million times before and it hasn't worked.
Lightning round. Okay, short and sweet. I actually don't think there's anything wrong with doing something like Ozempic or semaglutide because that's going to jumpstart the weight loss that you want. And ultimately, the hope is that you'll see that you're improving your body composition, you'll start losing weight, and then you'll also start making healthy choices as a result of that because now you have the instant gratification or the reward from that.
Short term, okay, but then get off of it.
Yes, exactly. Long-term, develop good habits.
Okay. A product manager tells you, how much time should I make in my life for weightlifting?
Per week, per day, ideally 2 to 3 times per week, 30 to 40 minutes. Nothing too crazy. 1 to 2 times per week of cardio. That should be more than enough.
What's your take on vitamins? Yay or nay? And what are the must-haves if they're yay?
In general, my recommendation is always get your vitamins from food when you can. There are some things that are much harder to get from food versus just taking a capsule. Magnesium is one of them, where magnesium used to be really plentiful in the soil, in fruit and vegetables. It's really not anymore with modern farming practices. I definitely recommend most people take magnesium supplements. Not health advice, by the way, just trying to cover myself. But in general, I would suggest vitamin A, vitamin K, vitamin C, those types of things, try to get from food when you can.
What's the one message you want someone listening to this podcast to come away with?
You don't have to be perfect. I have ebbed and flowed throughout multiple different types of methodologies and philosophies throughout the last 10 years, going from extremism to right now where I am more like, I want to enjoy my life. And sometimes you'll find the fittest people are actually the most miserable because they are deprived of a lot of calories. They are so hungry. Finding that balance where you are making good choices for your body, not because you want to be skinny, because you want to say, is this the best food or the best activity or the best decision in the long term for me to take care of myself? And it doesn't have to be eating perfect 7 days of the week. It doesn't have to be exercising every single day. It's about the cumulative sum of your decisions. Are you trying to eat more fiber? Are you trying to eat more protein? Are you trying to move more? Those principles alone, you don't have to adhere to any crazy strict routine. Just make better choices. Just be more mindful and more aware of the choices that you make.
Ariana's slogan for president is just do better.
Just do better.
I love it. Ariana, thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
If you've gotten this far, thank you for listening to another one of my episodes. Remember to follow The Esty Show on whichever platform you use to listen to podcasts. If you have any feedback, questions, or just want to share your own experiences, don't be shy. Hit me up on LinkedIn or email. That's esty.podcast@gmail.com. I'm all ears. Until next time, stay curious, stay bold, and never stop learning.